right now is exactly when it starts. Thank you so much, Graham. And Mzansi, this is a really important conversation, and I'm so glad we have a whole lot of time to get into it with our two specialists here today, where we are finding out about how, in fact, our children don't learn online safety rules from the net. Rather, they learn it from what they see from you, from me, from all of us, particularly as parents as well. And it is, what exactly are we setting when it comes to examples for our kids? You know, how do we interact with people on social media? What are we setting in terms of boundaries as well? Are we allowing the phones into the bedroom? These are all the kinds of questions that you need to ask yourself when you've got a child in the house. And thankfully today, we've got two people that are going to be guiding us through how exactly we can be setting the right example. So please can we welcome to your Feel Good Breakfast show. It is educational psychologist Siago Mapola, as well as digital law specialist and thought leader of the Gen Zs. It is Rourke Wilson to help us unpack mindful online learning and so much more. Let's give them a Feel Good welcome, please. Hello, you two. How are you?
Hello. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you guys for being here. And guys, I'm so excited for us to get into this conversation, especially because you two come from different backgrounds. So I think we're going to be touching all the bases. But Rourke, let's jump into it, because you work with a lot of young people, you know, from giving workshops in schools and just chatting to the youth. There's so much that goes into it in terms of understanding how exactly parents affect the youngsters when it comes to the online space. So can you talk to us about what are some of the common ways that parents practically and accidentally even expose their children just to digital risks sometimes?
I don't think there's lots of ways. I think there is one main way that parents expose their kids to digital risk, and that's giving their kids a phone. I have so many parents asking me at what age is the right age to give my child a smartphone, and I think that's the age that you're ready for them to see pornography, for them to see inappropriate content, to see people being harmed. I mean, for an example, I was speaking to grade 3s quite recently, and I asked a whole bunch of questions to gauge what it's like in the room, and I asked how many of them had a smartphone. Every single one of them had a smartphone.
Wow.
And I tried to keep it appropriate, and I said, hey, you know, there was quite a big political killing in the US quite recently. Have any of you seen that video? Every single one of them had seen that video of the event in the US, and it's basically that. It's like a car, you know. When you're piloting a 1-ton vehicle, you can kill lots of people. When you're online, when you have a phone, you can be exposed to a lot of dangers. So it's giving kids the phone in the first place that exposes them to that.
My goodness, and I don't think anyone thought of it that way, because that is exactly it. That's it in black and white, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But Siago, talk to us about, you know, the developmental consequences sometimes of children seeing themselves regularly posted online. Because I know that there's so many people that are doing studies at the moment to almost be like, how is that actually affecting our children? Because only now we can see what has happened to that generation. You know, what are those consequences?
I think before I get into that question, it is very important to mention that parenting is a journey for all of us.
Yes.
None of us really know what we're doing, even if we're on child number 5 or child number 10.
Yes.
It is different with every single one. And so we're all figuring it out together. And I think the purpose of today's conversation is just to really bring awareness that when you do give your child a phone, do it knowing that these are the risks and the dangers that go with it. And I love that you said regularly, right? So when we regularly post our children online, what does that mean for them?
Yeah.
Because I think obviously now and then you will post a picture of your child, because I mean they just did something super cute.
And we want to show them all.
Exactly.
Yes.
Like baby started walking, all of that beautiful. But is it a regular thing?
Ish.
And that is the question. And I think sometimes when we post our children regularly, we expose them to thinking that I need to be cute or I need to perform in order to get likes. When we post our children's images and stories without their consent, we're saying that I'm taking ownership of your privacy and your ownership. And what does that mean in terms of them forming their identity outside of you? I think sometimes as parents, we think that our children are miniature versions of us, but they're actually their own separate entities altogether. And so when we post, we have to ask, is it okay if I post this? Especially if it's going to be a regular thing.
Sure, and I think you really touched on something there where you're like, they almost think they have to perform in order to get likes. I mean, we as adults sometimes feel like that, right?
Absolutely.
Then we bring ourselves back to ourselves and we're like, no, stop it. I will not be controlled by social media. But little babies don't have that regulation, right? Sure. But Rourke, you've said that sharing online is a form of parenting. So talk to us a little bit about how does this relate to legal and ethical consent?
I feel like Siago really touched on some of the most important parts of this, and I really want to go into the legal side of it, and that's the constitutional right to privacy, something that we all have. But something that people forget is we only have our right to privacy so far as we protect it. So we have this legal concept called the expectation of privacy. And that's not what any person would expect in that situation. That's what you, based on your circumstances and your context, would do. And we actually had a case in South Africa where a gentleman was doxxed. He had his personal information put online because he was accused of animal abuse. And in making this Facebook post, they included his Facebook profile picture, his cell phone number, his home address, and in his Facebook profile picture, he had a picture of his daughter. And he said, listen, these guys have infringed my privacy. They have now made life dangerous for my daughter by putting all these details online and saying I abuse animals. And the court said, yes, that is true. However, all that information was already put in the public domain by yourself. All they did was go and collect that information and put it somewhere for everyone to go and see in one place. So you didn't protect your privacy. And that same applies to your kids. If you're posting them all the time, they don't have that expectation. And then just one last thing, the fear-mongery side of it is if we look at how powerful AI has become this day and an image generation, if you just have one image of your child's face online, an abuser can take that and do whatever they want with that image. And there's already been people being arrested globally for creating child abuse imagery out of kids' images.
That is so scary. I mean, I'm excited about AI, but oh my goodness, it's also like, oh, it's a little bit scary. But Siago, talk to us. How do we help parents recognize that, in fact, their online behavior is a form of social modeling for their kids?
Every single time when we post, and we need to think of it in this way, will I be fine with my child behaving the exact same way 10 years from now? And it's important for us to understand that when we react, when we have clapbacks and all of these things online, we're saying that it's okay to have public confrontations. We're okay to not regulate ourselves. And so the same thing that we want to see in our children, we need to be able to model and show ourselves.
Come on.
And so if you want a well-regulated child, you need to be able to show them that you're well-regulated.
And
that does not mean that you're hiding your emotions. You actually have to show your emotions that I'm feeling very angry right now, but instead of reacting publicly or throwing a tantrum, I'm going to behave in this way so that your child can see that is how we do it.
That's beautiful. I feel like a lot of people needed to hear that. But guys, I'm glad you're not going anywhere because this conversation is just getting juicy. And this is why you got to stick around, Expresso family. We're still talking about how it is that you as a parent are in fact informing how your child reacts online, even just, behaves online and so much more. And we're going to be finding out how you can protect them because that is what we have to do as parents, as aunts, as uncles, and so much more. Also coming up, though, we're going to be jumping on into how you can exercise and move freely. Even with those hemorrhoids, it is 100% possible. But we're going to be finding out how exactly right here on your Feel Good Breakfast Show. Do not go anywhere. It's all happening in a bit.
It's my Feel Good Breakfast Show.
We're feeling good indeed right here on your Feel Good Breakfast Show because you're here and we're having important conversations. It is all around how we as parents can actually be in the right stead when it comes to modeling the right kind of behavior for our children online, but also how can we protect them from all of the ills that are online? And this is a very good question that we're asking because at the end of the day, technology is here. But this is where we ask those very important questions. And this is why we're sitting down with Rourke as well as Siago as they guide us through this. And guys, you've already given us so many incredible nuggets. Thank you so much for that. I think, Rourke, you were saying, Siago, you've got bars. You're both laying out the bars. It's like Kendrick and Drake, but the cookie thing, okay? But guys, talk to us when we say, that parents demonstrate healthy online behavior. Siago, you already touched on it, right? In terms of how exactly they can show regulation and everything. But I also need to ask, in terms of showing digital regulation, what is the best way to be able to model that for your child in terms of allowing it to really become an example that you're setting for them?
I think it's also important in terms of the amount of time that we spend on our phones. It is quite crucial that we also show them that in our home, when we're having dinner or when we're spending time together, it is just us. We are tech-free. And so just to create an environment where we're also not on our phones the entire time, because then we're saying you can be on your phone the entire time. And I think, again, it is back to the point that I had made about the way that we react publicly, the conversations that we're a part of, the ranting that we do. And I think sometimes we obviously also want safe spaces to say the things that we want to say. But is social media the safe space for us to do so? Because not only are our children seeing that, our colleagues, their friends, their teachers are seeing that. And now there is this image or this narrative of this family being in a certain way. And we just need to be cautious of what we put out there stays there forever. And and it does affect our children whether or not we are aware of it.
With you saying, is that the safe space that we should be sharing in? Maybe get a therapist, you know what I mean?
Or a friend.
I suppose, like...
Just someone to spill tea with.
You know what I mean? But Rourke, your new book tackles sextortion, cancellation, and catfishing. Talk to us a little bit about why it's vital for parents to 100%, understand these risks before the kids even come to face them at all.
Because those are the three biggest risks, basically, that a child will face if you put them into the online sphere. We need to remember that, like Siago was saying, everyone can see it. Your co-workers can see it, your parents' friends, your neighbor's ex-girlfriend's dog. Half the world can see it. So you need to remember that. And then on the other side of it, it's digital. We know there's the delete button and you can go and unpost things, but the screenshot is always there and your ops are just waiting to catch you slipping up. So,
I love that.
And now you give someone who is 13 years old, does not have the fully developed brain, doesn't have their full thinking capacity, and you give them a phone where you can do everything now. Like Siago says, it's all about slowing down and thinking about how you're acting, and we're not encouraged to do that online. It's react now, post now, virality now. So everything from the addiction to the cancellation if they post something racist, which happens so many times in South African schools throughout the years. There's, all of those things are things that kids can get into, and that's why parents need to know about it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's about making yourself knowledgeable so that your child can be safe, right? So, Siago, I think that also, just in terms of what you touched on with us being in the home and now saying, this is what we do or what we don't do. Can you just touch on what's more effective in terms of having rules and rituals in the home? Is it with us modeling the behavior? Yes, but also putting in certain rules, just being like, you can't have your phone here, you can't have your phone there, and things like that. What really speaks to the kids more and allows them to kind of take that on better?
So someone made an example once and said, if I say to you, don't think of meat, right? The first thing that you're going to do is think of meat.
A steak.
Exactly,
Yes.
right? Medium rare, maybe.
Yes.
And so what we need to do is to create rituals where we are changing the negative statement from don't be on your phone to we're having take-free time. And that is the rituals. That creates culture, that creates a tradition in our home, as opposed to it being super rigid, that these are the things that we don't do. Let's speak about the things that we do as a family, things that create warmth and connection and love. And so it is quite important that we have those rituals in our families. And of course, rules are important. They definitely provide structure. But I think more than anything, we know that children are meant to push the boundaries, sometimes a little bit too much. And so when we explain that this is why we're doing this, oftentimes I see that there's more of a buy-in that, okay, now I can sort of oblige because I understand the why.
Yes, I love that. We talk about gentle parenting. I feel like sometimes it's also just a smart way to get them to buy in. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's really smart. But Rourke, I feel like you have dealt with a lot of parents and kids, and I feel like you'd be able to answer this so beautifully in terms of what's your one takeaway that you genuinely see for parents who want to future-proof their child's online well-being, and even just, as tech keeps evolving, what is that thing that really sticks out for you?
I can only do this in one thing.
I'll give you two. You can take two.
No, I think I can do this. I think I can do this in one.
Yes.
So it's that one thing is it's gentle parenting. Be your child's safe space. I get so many kids DMing our work inbox, emailing into us, asking us for help, and they're 16 years old. Their ex-boyfriend has now shared their nudes around the school, but I can't actually give them any help and contract with them because they're too afraid to tell their parents.
Sure.
Because the reality of what their parents will do to them is way scarier than the reality of their privacy being infringed to the entire school. So I think it really is to try and create that safe space, and there's no one way to do this. Everyone's kid is different, everyone's relationship is different.
Come on.
But try to be that safer person so that they're not afraid of making mistakes around you, and that when things do go wrong, because if you give them a phone, I guarantee you something will go wrong. Something you have to be ready for. You need to be someone they'll come to. Because if they're silent, that's where the big danger comes in, when they don't let you in and they let that abuse continue.
Sure. Guys, I feel like you really have just touched on so many important things in just this one conversation. So thank you so much. And thank you for the amazing work that you continue to do. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Of course. You see, this is why we wanted to have this conversation. I feel like even me, as just an aunt, I've walked away with so many incredible nuggets that I can go and share with my little nieces and nephews. And of course, we know that online is where we live our lives. lives now a lot of the time, but we need to find out how can we be safe, which allows our children to be safe. For right about now, my gorgeous Carissa, you know how much we were looking forward to this conversation. Don't you feel more knowledgeable now, Auntie?